Well, SportsCage brought to you by Nelson Homes, of course, supplying home packages and RTMs for over 65 years. This is Don Hewitt filling in for Barney. Barney just finishing up a family vacation. He will be back on Monday, and the Roughriders will be back on Monday, and Dave Thomas will be back on Monday, and I won't be here on Monday, but Barney will be back in the big chair, and we got some outstanding guests lined up for you on this TGIF event for SportsCage. Dan Rashovich, who played in the CFL for 16 years, 16 seasons, is coming up off the top of the show. He's also a counselor for Ward 1 in Regina. He was a good football player. He's a very good counselor. Regina's happy to have him and happy that he eventually moved back to Regina. We'll talk about that with Dan later. The 29-year voice of the Calgary Stampeders and QR77, Mark Stephen. He'll also join us if it weren't for COVID. He would be at 30 years as the voice of the Stamps. Jack Neumann, with always some interesting insights, will join us. He lives a block away from McMahon Stadium, and he said he's never heard it that loud in several years, as far as the crowd is concerned from last night. Ron Taylor, well, Ron and his wife, Deb McDaniel, they drive to Regina and back for every Rider home game. So anybody that does that deserves a few minutes on SportsCage. Of course, if you didn't know it, it's National Fishing Week in Canada. And, well, there's our technical producer, Curtis Gammon. He likes that. Do you fish, Curtis?
I was not ready for you to call for me.
That's okay.
I like
How much
fishing.
fishing do you do? Yeah.
Not a lot of fishing. Did some fishing when I was a youth. Used to go out with my uncle and stuff. But it's been a long time. But I would actually love to go fishing like tomorrow. You want to go fishing, Don?
Well, I won't catch a fish, but Jason Matity will. He's the guy to go to. So we'll check to see if he'll take you fishing tomorrow, and he should. Barney's going to be along with a golf gym in Indian Head. Glen Suitor, he joins us. Of course, he called the color for the TSN game last night. Calgary destroying the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, but the Stampede Bowl will never be the Banjo Bowl. We all know that, and we're going to have a lot of fun on top of it all. But let's start out with a heck of a football player. He was a stud, if I can use that word, as a CFL football player. Anybody that can last 16 seasons in a sports like that, well, he was a durable dude. Welcome to the show, Dan. Let's go over some of your stats for a minute. You played here in Saskatchewan from 87 to 1999, 255 games played, 414 defensive tackles, allegedly and wrongly 153 special team tackles. We'll talk about that later. 3 picks, 17 fumble recoveries, 23 sacks. You should be leading the CFL in special teams tackles, but you've been ripped off. You started in 87, but what was it? 3 years later, they started the league, or was it 3 years that they started counting special teams tackles, and you got hosed?
So my rookie year was 84. They started keeping track in 19.
That's right. Yeah, Toronto and Ottawa, yeah.
They missed my first 7 years, basically. So my last 9 years, I wrote this down, So
that's okay.
Rob Vanstone's been quite kind of on top of this, Yeah. So my last 9 years, I had 153. Rob found through the stats with the Riders from 87. So those 4 years with the Riders, he found the numbers, and I would have been at 245. 245, right. And that would be the record easy. And then my first 3 years, I was with the Argos in Ottawa, and I started. I was picked our special teams player of the year, and I sent you some stuff about those first 3 years. You know what? Those have been 38. That, like Vanstone said, the numbers would be Gretzky-like.
Well, I mean, he even had some numbers for individual years from Rob, like 1990. You had 23 special teams tackles to lead the Roughriders, 3 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, 3 fumble recoveries, 1 pick. You were a Western All-Star. Then Rob also had 1992. You had 70 defensive tackles. You led the team, 20 special teams tackles, 4 sacks, 4 tackles for a loss. I mean, Rob is just such a wizard with numbers. And we're going to have some pictures up, but I sent the text to the wrong number to Curtis to get them developed. I'm going to try to maybe text while we're talking to see if we can get a few pictures of those up. So it's such a long, distinguished football career you had, and not only should you be way ahead in special teams tackles, and you still look like you could play. I saw you at a coffee shop a few months ago, and I thought, whoa. But you also had the bizarre distinction of being drafted in the CFL 3 times. Like, how did that happen?
Well, hey, 1984, I was drafted by the Ottawa Roughriders, 13th overall. Mm-hmm. Then I was, then I got, then I ended up in Toronto and I played my contract out. But they had an equalization draft because back then the weaker teams could pick players from the good teams. So I got drafted. So Montreal had picked me from Toronto, but I played out my contract and went to mini camps with the Raiders in '87 and El Segundo. That was pretty cool with Tom Flores and you know what I mean. It was pretty neat, For sure. So then I got released. So I ended up in Montreal for the end of training camp because training camp was being held in Halifax. So I got out there late. Then we were going to our first game to play Toronto. We were on the bus, and the team folded. Well, then that was the third draft. It was the dispersal draft. So me and Dave Ridgway ended up here with the Riders. So, I get the distinction. I've been drafted 3 times in the CFL.
And what a draft for Saskatchewan, getting you and Dave Ridgway. I mean, they knew what they were doing with the dispersal draft, the way you guys played, the 2 of you.
Thanks. Well, Bill Baker was the GM, and I think there was some Dick Adams was one of the coaches here, and he coached me my rookie year in Ottawa.
Dickie Adams.
Yep. So he, I know I've talked to Bill Baker, and all he said was we needed more toughness on this team. Yeah.
You gave it. You definitely gave it. Yep.
But we had a ton of guys like that. Mm-hmm. We did. I had quite a few guys, which is pretty neat. Yeah.
Well, speaking of toughness in that sort of realm, in 1990, thanks to Al Ford, the former Roughrider general manager, he gave us permission at CTV to put a wireless mic on yourself in the Western semifinal up in Edmonton. TSN and Sportsnet, I think, were just a year or 2 old, maybe. They just were starting, and I'd never heard of putting a wireless mic on players at that time. I thought I was a genius. Apparently, probably people were doing it here and there, but we put that wireless mic, and for people that haven't played football in particular, when we ran the feature, they found it very interesting because, and I did too, because all the groaning that you heard, like how physical the game was. It was a playoff game, so more physical than the average regular season game. And you get hit so much, special teams and tackling and whatnot, and you'd get hit, and I'd just hear you moan and groan. Then you could hear other guys moaning and groaning beside you in the pileups. And I thought, I never realized there was so much of that went on.
In that game particularly, it was a snowy, windy, -10. Who knows what the wind chill was. Like, if you recall, even I was trying to talk to our corners and halfbacks. Sometimes my mouth was frozen, and the water bottles were frozen. And it was a nasty day. It really was, and the groaning probably, gets, I think, a little more painful when it's super cold, when you're getting hit and things. Yeah. It just does. Yeah, it really does. But it's funny. You know what, Don? I found the tape. I don't know if it's still going to be able to watch, but I watched that. I don't remember almost anything from that game, but I watched the game and I'm like, oh my God, like, you know what? So in the 4th quarter, the score was like, I don't know, what was it? It was like it was like 36-27 with about 3 minutes left, and we had the ball on Edmonton's 30, and we went for it on 3rd and 1, didn't get it. You know what I mean? Like, I just look back, go, oh man, like, you know what? Like, you know, some of the guys that had great games, you know, I was like Milson Jones had such a great game, and you know, and Jeff Fairholm and Orville Lee had a great game. He had a great punt return for 58 yards, and it's funny. I look back at that tape. I didn't really, not to brag, I caused a fumble, or I covered a fumble, and I had a sack. I don't remember any of it.
Yeah,
I don't remember any of it.
That's a sign of playing 255 games. Like, you've played so many that, yeah, I can understand that. And, you know, I felt after that game, you guys had won the Grey Cup the year before in 89, and I felt the team took the loss even harder than usual because you'd had a taste of that cup the year before. What do you think?
Well, I think so too, because, you know, when I'm watching, actually, when I went through that game really quick, and I'm like, we had our chances. Like, we had our chances. Like, we really had our chances. Like, there was opportunities, but on both ways, you know, Edmonton too, you know, but both teams had their opportunity. We had chances to win that game. We really did, you know.
Yeah,
it's like, man, you know, and you look back, but yeah, it was quite the game. You know, it's interesting because Tracy Ham that year had rushed for over 1,000 yards as a rusher. You know, he was pretty dangerous. You know, and you know, just look. It was, and I guess I remember I watched this game. There was a ton of penalties. There was a ton of penalties.
It was a dirty game, I thought.
It was a ton of penalties.
A lot of cheap stuff. Yep.
Yeah, you know, and I guess during the regular season, both our teams were the least amount penalized teams in the league, but during that game there was all these penalties, you know, so it's kind of interesting, you know. So, well,
Edmonton was mad because you had knocked them off, upset them the year before in the West Final, and they were mad and they didn't want you guys to beat them, and you were proud because you were defending champs. So it's just the tempers were high and the emotions were high, I felt. And you said it was cold. Normie Fong saved me. I came up in a blue jeans jacket. I would have frozen without Normie Fong giving me a jacket of some sort.
You know, well, in the field, the only parts that were clear because there was snow on the fields, they just cleared, you know, they cleared the length, the width of the field, you know, just the width of the field, like, kind of on the like 10, 20, 30, 40 type thing, right? The rest was snow. Like, the footing was just terrible. It was awful. Anyway, it was just, but anyways, that you brought back some memories, Don. You brought back some memories.
Well, yeah, I mean, you were such a physical player. How are you now? You know, years later, is your body still okay after all of that pounding you took?
Well, I got some aches. You know, it's just, you know, it's funny. You know, just, you know, I'll be 65 this year, and you know, you got to just kind of terms with some of the things that are hurting. You know, like the two things that really, I guess, for me are my left ankle and my right knee, and you know, I know ex-teammate, actually, Matt Finley. He played with the Stampeders for 10 years, outside linebacker. Well, me and Matt were in Montreal during so Calgary took Matt Finley in the dispersal draft. I ended up in Saskatchewan. Well, Matt just had an ankle replacement.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I've been asking him, how's it feeling? Because I might need one. Yeah. So, So, you know, otherwise I feel good, right? Like, if I didn't have these aches and pains, man, I feel like, hey.
Oh, you don't look anywhere close to 65. No, you don't. When I saw you at the coffee shop, I thought you could walk on the field tomorrow. Honestly, one of the worst experiences of my life, really. It must have been almost 40 years ago. I go to Hawaii. I end up running into you and Rick Goltz. In the prime of your career, Rick Goltz was about 6'5", 280, muscles on muscles, long blonde hair, tanned. And I would stand there with you two, and people would walk by, men and women both, and nobody looked at me. Nobody. Just at you two guys. You know what I mean? I was like the pencil neck. And I thought, I'm the invisible man. And I have to tell you, they mainly looked at Goltz because you second, but me not even at all. But Goltz was just, oh my Lord. Anyway, Yes, that was a low point for me when I was like a meaningless individual on the beach with two CFL football players. Now,
the prime, we were in our prime though. That we were in our prime. That's for sure.
Now, you of course left Regina for a number of years, Dan. I mean, now you're back in the community. You're a hardworking city councilor. Why did you come back to Regina?
Well, when I left, because I had two boys in Calgary, and I wanted to be close to them. So that's why we left. So my current wife, Laura, she came with me, and I promised her that we'll come back to Regina because her parents are here, and we had a daughter, and I wanted my daughter to get to know her grandparents. So that was that was it. Like, so, I was working in Calgary. I was there for about 12 years. And then our president of our company came up to me and said, "Hey, what do you want?" I was like, whoa, there's my chance. And I said, well, because I was in the oil and gas industry, right? And people were jumping ship all over the place at the time. And, he didn't want to lose me, I guess. And I said, I want to live in Saskatchewan. And then he just looked at me, goes, what? Why? I said, then I gave it to him, family. And then he's like, Jesus. He goes, how does he argue against that, right? I didn't care about I didn't want more money. I wanted to be close to family, and wanted my daughter to have a relationship. You know what? And I mean that. So anyways, because my boys at that time were about 16, 17 years old, kind of jumping out of the nest more, So now I thought this was the right opportunity. And I love Saskatchewan. I do. I love Regina. You know what? It was the best thing that ever. When I came here, and with that first group of guys and winning that Grey Cup, you know what? It meant something. It really did. We didn't want to. The team missed the playoffs for 11 years in a row, and I remember us talking about all that kind of stuff, and we wanted to change that. And it's just so it's been a great experience, and it's been great to be back. And I guess what I'll say about Regina, you know what? I just find life is easy here. It's easy to get around, to visit people, community. Like there's just it's kind of like having shepherd's pie. You know what? It's comfortable.
Oh, that's interesting. Now, you said you love Regina. Was that one of the reasons that sort of led you to city politics?
Well, I got this coffee group I go to in the morning. There's a bunch of guys that go to my coffee group, and we talk about everything, right? Like everything. And the background of everybody's pretty diverse. And, we're always talking and beaking off. And I guess, you know what? I figured if I'm going to keep complaining, then, what? Do something, right?
Yeah.
Do something. You know what? But making that decision, I'll be honest with you, Don, like, it wasn't easy, man. It really wasn't. It was a hard decision, I was like, man, because once you're in, you're in. You know what? You don't want to be just doing half job, and that's typically not how I am. And I try to follow up with people. I've been trying. I've been trying. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yes. And I think you have to be in those shoes to even understand that. Do you not?
Yeah, it's a lot, and I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good, but I feel a good vibe in the city. I really do. I feel some energy. I feel it. Yep.
Well, speaking of a good vibe, let me see if I can talk you into something, because I'm a real supporter of this P3 private-public partnership that the soon-to-be new owners of the Regina Red Sox would like to explore. I was just talking to Al Simpson this morning, because he's my neighbor. I live 3 doors down. And, they want to talk, of course, to the city council and the mayor about building a new facility, baseball facility in the rail yards. It could be done as a P3 with little or no cost to the taxpayer, which is something we just haven't done in this city. Alberta does it all the time. And look where Alberta is compared to Saskatchewan in certain areas and certain facilities. Have you and your fellow city councilors and the mayor, have you discussed this at all? Has it come up?
It hasn't really come up yet. No, nothing.
Okay.
Nothing has come up with the baseball stadium. You know what's funny? But it's interesting. Like, hey, like I've been to Okotoks. Like when I lived in Calgary,
there you go.
Hey, I've gone to Seaman Stadium. I've caught some games there.
Yeah.
I've been in their field house facility, which is right by it. You know, like when I lived in Calgary, I used to take my customers for lunch right by McMahon Stadium to go hit baseballs, because there's that white dome that you can hit balls and order a pizza.
Yeah.
Like it was awesome, eh?
Yeah.
It was good. But back to, I mean, that stadium, you know, hey, I agree. We need a lot of these things. We need sometimes private investment.
Exactly.
You know what?
Yep.
We do. Like that's the catalyst, that's the stimulus. Like Seaman Stadium, like the family there, you know, I guess that Seaman family donated or gifted $20.5 million, you know, and I believe it's then another $2.5 million for the field house, you know, so yeah, hey, I'm more than open, and I sure other councils would be open to sit down and like, let's figure something out, you know, and, you know, does it go in the yards? Hey, I don't know. Maybe that is the best spot. Does it? I mean, is there enough room to put it at real? So
there
you
is.
have
well, there's extra room. Al told me. I know that.
Okay, so
there's extra room outside of the actual baseball park.
Yeah.
And you know, it would revitalize downtown for such small cost. For such small cost. Well, we're talking politics. I thought we'd be talking. But this is sports. It's a baseball facility, and I think it'd be great. Like they can't, you know, I mean, the Curry Field is so outdated.
See,
and,
I think the idea with
the Red Sox there. What's that?
I mean, I'm not a baseball expert, but you know, I mean, obviously, in Okotoks they got the field house. Well, this field house obviously becomes quite a training facility for, you know, and creates activity in that area. Hopefully, in that area to create more, right? You know, wherever you put it, right? Wherever you put it. So, you know, we want to create, you know, some energy, right? Obviously, but again, you know, it's a summer sport and it's only open 4 months a year. I mean, but you know, with the field house,
I think they have different ideas on various things on that.
Okay.
We got to wrap up in time, but I do know one thing that I know you'd agree with, and we finally got a picture up of Dan Rashovich, and thank you to Curtis because of my texting error. There he is in 1990, and there he is. You just destroyed Garcia there on a tackle.
I was worried the refs were going to pull the flag.
What's that?
I was worried he's going to pull the flag. It looked like his hand was like,
he's looking. Did he pull the flag, or can you remember? Oh, there's another good shot by Curtis. You just stuffed somebody at the goal line against Edmonton here. Was
West Final in 97 on the 1 yard line. I stuffed Burse.
Oh, man. What a game that was. We could talk about that game, too.
Yeah.
That's what you got there, Curtis. That was a good job at the last minute. Well, congratulations on doing a great job in loving Regina, and also an outstanding. I mean, you deserve more credit than you've ever gotten for what a good football player you were, Dan. But thanks for joining us on SportsCage.
Don, nice seeing you, and thanks.
Okay, you bet. SportsCage continues in just a moment. And Don Hewitt back with SportsCage, filling in with the Big Cheese, the head host, Barney Shinkaruk. I just call him Barney. I think of him just as Barney, like, Sharky. Anyway, Barney's back on Monday. Don't forget the Saskatchewan Roughrider Foundation 50-50 draw. Plenty of exclusive getaways and unique experiences are up for grabs. Lots of sports trips and travel destinations. There's a new early bird draw to be won every game, of course, Calgary and Saskatchewan on Friday night. A variety of different ticket packs to buy. Buy your tickets online at riders5050.ca. Mark Steven has been the voice of the Calgary Stampeders on QR77 for 29 years, but it should be 30 because if it wasn't for COVID, he would have made 30. And right now, Mark he's got to be smiling a bit. Last night in the CFL, Calgary destroys, and I mean destroys Winnipeg 37-16. It was 29-6 at halftime. I thought the 37-16 final actually flattered Winnipeg. Both teams now at 3-1, so a huge showdown Friday night. 3-1 Calgary here against 4-0 Saskatchewan. And Mark, the first thing that's really unique, I'd say, Vernon Adams. How do you do this with how dominant Winnipeg has been in the last 5 years, winning the West for 5 years straight? Vernon Adams has a winning record against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and he does it again, a couple of touchdown passes, and it was masterful, I thought, in his play calling.
I agree. Well, thanks for having me. Yeah, the first half especially, I thought he was just as dominant as anybody. He was really good, and I can't exactly explain it. I mean, he's played for some good teams in BC and Montreal before coming here, but no, he was just sensational, and everything was working for him. He was right on target. I think at one time he had like 9 of 11 with 2 touchdown passes, something like that. It was just amazing. It was just really exciting to see him, and that's what he's brought here for.
And not only did he throw the ball well, he got a lot of running support. Like I haven't seen a team run against Winnipeg that well for quite a while. Meanwhile, Adam Bighill is dressed in red watching it. So, I mean, it was a great night for your running game.
Overall, the ground game has been very good. It's probably been the one area that's been the most consistent through the first 4 games. Dedrick Mills is racking up big yards. Obviously, yes. You can see Vernon Adams' escapability. He's done very well. Jeshurun Antwi didn't play this week, had a bit of an ankle injury, not considered real serious, but he didn't play. So they'll be even stronger when they come in and play the Riders next week. But the line has played very well, but the backs have been really solid. So that was just a continuation of the trend through the first 4 games.
Now, Bob Slowick took over your defense. He was in the NFL, I think, for 10 years, a decade. He had a great defense in 2019, I believe it was, in Montreal. Your new defensive coordinator, and he is doing a bang-up job. I mean, this looks like a completely different defense, Mark. There's more blitzing. The defensive backs are more aggressive. How much credit does he get? I mean, obviously, they've got some good ball players, including I believe 3 former Roughriders on the defense, but this guy is he's cooking as your D coordinator.
Oh, for sure. First of all, he's really experienced. I mean, when they decided they needed a new coordinator, I mean, he obviously had the deepest resume of anybody that would have talked to about the job, because you're right, he is 70. So there was some concern about whether he'd want to do it, but he did want to do it. And, he does have the experience, but you're right, it's a completely new defense. Many players either aren't in football or scattered all over the place because they just had to make changes after a 5-win season last year. And, obviously it's paid off so far. I think they've been really good, and the secondary has really played well, considering, again, it is almost entirely new. Their halfbacks are raw rookies. Richardson on one corner doesn't have a lot of experience. Green does, and the safety Webb has experience. But in general, there's not a lot of experience there.
Well, another thing, too, that I was impressed about is how many times Zach Claros, the quarterback for the Blue Bombers, got hit just as he threw. I mean, he was always getting up.
And he was forced to make a lot of throws at times when he didn't want to make throws, and rushed a lot of throws. And, the Stampeders, they saw something, particularly in the secondary, because they did intercept those 2, which were amazing, but they were right around the receivers on a constant basis and making life tough, not only for him, but for the receivers as well. And there's Webb, but that was a remarkable play. Obviously, They saw something, and he just sprinted to the end zone. So, yeah, that's, they just saw something on Claros, who clearly is one of the best ever, but he just wasn't on his game last night.
Yes, Webb, a former Rough Rider as well. Now, I really like the fact that they moved Webb to safety. He seems to be flourishing there, does he not?
Yes, he does. And it's a bit of it wasn't the intended position for him, because they started from last year, Bentley Saunders, but he really, since about the first week of camp, hasn't been able to do anything because of a reoccurring hamstring injury. So he's been plugged in there, and I agree with you. I think he's done really well, and when Sanders does come back, and that's still a couple weeks away at least, I don't know where he fits in, to be honest, or what happens after that, because it's working right now.
Well, I mean, bulletin to Dave Dickinson, I wouldn't move him anywhere after that.
I kind of agree. It is really working. Yeah, I'm with you. It's I'd say probably not what they intended, but it's worked out very well. And he's a leader back there. Him and Moncrief are the 2 sort of defensive leaders, because somebody had to step up. to a certain extent in the back end because they're all highly unfamiliar with each other, but although they do have a lot of experience.
Well, Derek Moncrief is very well known here in Saskatchewan and Regina, not only because he was a former Rough Rider, but he's also a bit of a celebrity with his car wash commercials. You don't live here, but his wife's parents own a big car wash in town, and Derek and his little child are always on television. So I think people like to sort of still cheer for Derek. He's highly thought of as an individual in this community still. But, you watch him, and his pick six was outstanding. But it looks like he's lost weight. He's faster.
Well, he is very fast, yeah, and he's, again, kind of having to lead some linebackers back there because he's got the most experience. Micah Tights is there, but also they lost their starting middle linebacker. Mark Al Lee is in the middle, but he's gone for an extended period, so that's why they had to go out and get a couple of linebackers. But no, he's fit right in. Huge personality. He's been talking about his child, who is in Regina on a regular basis. Child arrived, I guess, roughly a month ago, and if he's a big personality, I can understand it because he's showing signs of that here. And a very likable guy. Yeah.
Yeah, you see him constantly on the news washing somebody's car. But anyway, he's
kidding about that. I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, last year, let's be honest, your defense versus the run was a turnstile. I mean, anybody could run against you, and I know during the offseason, Dave Dickinson said that was a major concern and they had to beef up. And I really like the fact that you guys picked up Miles Brown from Saskatchewan. Once the Riders picked up Mike, Rose.
Rose trade.
Yeah, the trade, right? Almost like a trade. And they're such different defensive tackles. One's got a skill set totally different from another. Brown is a plugger at 320. Mike Rose is lighter, but, he can tackle outside of the box. He's got more mobility, so you can argue about that. But, I really thought that he's part of it, but you guys are stacking up the run so much better. What are all the reasons for that, do you think?
Well, one of them, you identified it. They've got more bulk on the inside, and that is by design. As I say, Mike Rose has a lot of skills, but they signed Miles Brown for his run-stopping ability. There's a guy that the coaches are high on. Maybe he hasn't got a lot of attention, but 96 Hutchings, real big run stopper in there. The Pro Football Focus people took notice and gave him very high grades for the first month of the season. They've also got some people returning, Justin Sambu. And, of course, off the end, they brought in Flo Ormalad. He's not an inside guy, but he's the leader on that line. He keeps the guys out after practice, working with them. He's amazing for Flo. And, they paid a heavy price to get him because I think Cam Judge is a really good player. But that's what they needed. So those two guys on the inside have done a really good job, and they've plugged up the middle. They're doing very well, and they've got some guys in reserve that have also done very well. So it was a point of emphasis for sure, because you're right, there were just too many yards. And, I know I get it all the time. Well, how come they release this guy, that guy? Look, I'm not hanging on any one guy, but they weren't good enough. Right. They were 5-12-1, and things have to change.
Right. Now, it was funny, we were watching the game last night, and the first thing my wife says about, I don't know when TSN showed him on the sidelines, but Adam Bighill looks really strange in red. Anyway,
yes, he does.
but he looks like he's in really good shape, and he looks like the old tough cookie that Adam Bighill is. Of course, he's still working on his injury, working on some strength with the folks with the Stampeders. When do you think Adam Bighill will be in the lineup? Will he be here Friday night against Saskatchewan? Would he be dressing, do you think?
I think that's really a long shot. I wouldn't think so, because you mentioned he's coming off of that serious knee issue that he had, the ACL surgery last year, and he hasn't had a training camp. I mean, these guys, the Riders and the Stamps, are all, 2 months into their season, so he's a little bit behind, but he's still a block of granite. I got to tell you that. He's an amazing-looking guy. I got to say, the players just gravitate to him. It's unbelievable for a guy who's been here, about 6 days. The players just gravitate to him. They talk to him. He talks to them. Yeah. It's he's just plugged right in. But physically, no, he's not quite there. But here's a delicious story. It wasn't planned this way, but I think he could make his debut on July 18th when the Stampeders are in Winnipeg.
Wow.
I would think that's the earliest. I wouldn't completely rule it out. Let's put it this way. that's the earliest, and I think it's a reasonable possibility. We'll monitor his progress. They've got the weekend off. I'm sure he'll be doing some work, and then I think this week they'll ramp up his workload, but I just don't think he's ready for a game. Dave Dickinson said it's not us pushing him to get on the field; it's the other way around. They have to save Adam Bighill from himself. So, but yes, he will play, and the earliest, a great storyline that writes itself. Adam Bighill returns to Winnipeg. Could happen.
Yeah, that will be big. Now, I really liked what I saw last night. I mean, Quick Six was busy with Pick Six. If I can say Quick Six, of course, being the Stampeder horse. I don't like the Stampeder horse when they're playing the Riders, but I like the Stampeder horse against any other team. But what I saw was a decent crowd, not a bad crowd. You'd like a few more there, but still not bad. But the really cool thing was how boisterous, happy, excited, loud they were. And after that shellacking of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, I think, did you feel it that maybe there's going to be some re-energized Stampeder fans in the city?
Oh, I would think so. It was a sensational atmosphere. You're right about that. It was heavily hyped all week, the game. That trophy attracted a lot of attention. It's kind of a very unique trophy. It was made by the people who actually made the Four Nations trophy, so it was really good that way.
Really?
No, it's a big deal. They put a lot of effort behind this. Brett Michaels was tremendous. He was really good and really got into it. In fact, they almost had to boot him off the stage. He was just going so hard and long. Players were all kind of standing there saying, well, who's going to be the guy that tells them this to leave? But no, he got right into it. You're right. The crowd was energized. That had a playoff feel vibe to it as far as I was concerned. It was just a noisy, boisterous crowd, and it was a really nice night. Mind you, we deserved a good day after the prior home game that game against Ottawa. So it was a debacle, but had to play it. So.
Well, I like the idea of the Stampede Bowl. Of course, I think it officially starts today, but the tents were open yesterday. I'll never see one son for 4 days. He'll be in those tents 24/7. Anyway, but I like the idea because I mean the Banjo Bowl has done well. The Banjo Bowl has become, famous in its own right within the CFL. And why not have a Stampede Bowl? And interestingly enough, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are going to be in both. I guess they attract attention, or what do they do?
Yeah, no, it was a really good idea, and they had to pair up with the Stampede. Okay, you can't do this on your own, and there's a bunch of reasons, and something probably that was long overdue. But the Stampede and the Stampeders got together, and it became the real key is this became an official Stampede event, not just a CFL game. And look, the Stampeders have their great following, but it's a regional following. The Stampede is a worldwide phenomenon. And, the Stampede got their muscle behind it and told people about it and everything. And that brought out people that, barely know where Canada is, never mind the CFL. And they were there. So, but it's really, really well done. And, they'll build on that because it was just a great game. Lots of great hype. The Stampede was there helping out. And it was just almost a playoff style night as far as I was concerned, even though it's July the 3rd.
You bet. Now, there it is.
There it is.
Look at that! The exciting presentation of the
I'll be flow lifted.
Stampede Bowl. Yeah, it's a nice trophy. Now, if you could, Curtis, could you get that graphic for us? Because the Winnipeg Blue Bomber social media team did a heck of a funny and entertaining graphic. I think I sent it to you, and it just having a good sense of humor, I think, is win or lose. People love it. And they appreciate it. And it's particularly when the Winnipeg Blue Bombers haven't lost much for quite a while. But they put up a graphic, and Curtis is getting it right away. And it's right there where they say Winnipeg X Stampeder logo final, no score, just Winnipeg fans at McMahon. And at the very bottom, in tiny, weeny little letters, Google it.
Well, at least they made light of it because, it hasn't happened often, like you said. But the Bombers were spanked pretty good last night. Let's not kid anybody. So, good for them to at least seeing it. There was no time for making excuses or, anything or pointing fingers. They lost. They'll win far more than they lose this year, but that was not them at their best.
Yeah, I mean, no, you're never going to take Winnipeg for granted at any time. And there's another one of your pick sixes there.
Well, I'll just tell you at halftime when we were going to the break, I just said it was, the score's 29-6, but I said, nobody rest. Let's not forget who they're up against.
Yeah, that's right.
I know, didn't take it for granted until that play you just showed there. That's when I realized that the tide had completely turned.
Well, yeah, we were pretty much out of time, but yeah, quite a run of games you got. I mean, you host Winnipeg, you come to Saskatchewan, then you go to Winnipeg, and it's going to be very interesting.
Montreal.
Right, that's right. So you got 4 games.
This is the gauntlet. This is the gauntlet right here.
Yeah.
This will go a long way to deciding the Stampeders season because they're running the gauntlet, and they got Winnipeg twice, like you say, then the Riders and Montreal. So it's off to a good start, but a lot more work to do. Can they play giant killer one more time and knock another team out of the unbeaten? I guess we'll see.
We'll find out Friday night. Anyway, yes. That's great. Thanks a lot, Mark, for joining us on SportsCage. SportsCage continues in just a moment. Well, it's obvious what our sports ticker is going to be for the good folks at Reliance right now. It is hot off the press sort of thing. Joey Chestnut, well, they brought him back into the Nathan's hot dog eating contest because they had to. Nobody cared if Joey Chestnut wasn't in the particular contest. And so he was going earlier today for his 17th mustard belt. A lot of intrigue as to whether he could do it. The 17th mustard belt on Coney Island. And guess what, folks? He didn't disappoint. 70.5 hot dogs. That's the wiener and the bun. 70.5. Immortalized for his 17th mustard belt. Our own technical producer, Curtis Gammon, was also once in a hot dog eating contest. Please tell us about that, Curtis.
Hold up. Got to get my microphone over here. Yeah. You like my hot dog eating story?
Yes,
there,
I
Don?
did.
All right,
I did like it.
So we were talking off air about Joey Chestnut, and we were kind of joking that it's like, oh, do you think you could do 70, Curtis? I was like, no way. I did a hot dog eating contest once in my life, and it didn't end well. I only got to 13. So I'm a bit bigger than I was when I was a wee little lad eating the hot dogs in a hot dog eating contest. But you know what? I feel like I could probably do less than 13 now, actually, Don. I'd probably tap out at like 5. I just feel like garbage.
Well, how does a guy do 70.5? He trains, but how do you train doing that? Like what? How? Wait, you just eat, throw up, then eat, throw up? That's the training, or what's the course of events for training for this?
You know what? I heard an interview about how he trains once. I think he was actually talking when he was in town for Queen City X. I know he was talking with like Mark Johnston with Play 92, our sister station, and I remember he was talking about how he doesn't like eat he like fasts before any kind of eating competition.
Oh, okay.
And one of the big things is just like water, water to get it all down.
Oh, okay.
And and then I think I also saw another interview with him where he was talking about the hot dogs have to be warm. If the hot dogs are cold, he can't do it. And the buns can't be dry. So got to be nice, moist buns, lots of water, right temperature to break the record.
Well, he'd know. He's an expert. There's no doubt about it. Mark, by the way, does a great job as a host of the Rider Games. He's really good on the big screen. And don't forget the Saskatchewan Roughrider Foundation 50/50 draw. And this week's early bird prize, an AC/DC concert package in Scotland, includes flights for 2 from Saskatchewan to Edinburgh, 4 nights hotel accommodation, 2 tickets to see AC/DC on August 21st, tour from Edinburgh to Loch Ness, or a day trip to the Scottish Highlands. I'd go see Loch Ness because he exists. He's there. You can go see him. Round-trip transfers from airport to hotel or take $8,500 cash. Deadline is Wednesday, July 9th. Riders 50/50.ca. And we'll be back with SportsCage in just a moment. That's Don Hewitt back with SportsCage, filling in for Barney. Barney will be in his usual SportsCage big chair on Monday when the Roughriders get back to work before Friday's game at Mosaic Stadium against the 3-1 Calgary Stampeders. The Roughriders undefeated, and a lot of hype that's going to build up next week for that football game. It's going to be very exciting, to say the least. Don't forget to text us at 1-866-936-6262. We'll get some texts read by Curtis shortly. Text line brought to you by Prairie Land Rental and Sales. From skid steers to power tools, anything you need to rent for the summer job is at Prairie Land Rentals. Deal with the owner, 600 Albert Street. Well, one of our favorite Rough Rider experts, Jack Neumann, now joins us on SportsCage. Jack's always got some interesting opinions. He lives, but he's got a green shirt on, and he's from Saskatoon. But he lives only a block from McMahon Stadium. Jack, did you hear all the cheering last night from McMahon in your backyard?
Yeah, it was. I did, Don. I was going to go to the game, but I decided not to. I got watching the Blue Jay game against the Yankees,
Yeah.
and I didn't wander up, but I could hear it. I can always tell what the crowd is like because I can hear the noise, and also where I live, about 3-4 blocks from the stadium. Depends how many cars are parked in front of my house, and it was they had a very good crowd last night. You know, it was the first ever Stampede Bowl, and they announced 24,500 somewhere in there. Whether there were 24,500 there or not, I don't know. I'm not, because I wasn't there, and I'm very good. I'm not very good at estimating crowds to begin with. But you know something, Don. Today was the start of the Stampede, and they had the Stampede Parade. And the way Calgary played last night, I think they might be planning a Grey Cup Parade.
Stampede Parade to Grey Cup Parade.
Yeah, at least they got a route planned, anyways. But one game doesn't make for a season. But I watched. But Winnipeg was full marks. Calgary was full marks for that win. They played great football, and I was reading the quote by O'Shea after the game, and he was playing. He was blunt and simple. We got our butts handled to us in every facet of the game, and you got to give Calgary full marks, and that sets up a real big football game in Regina next week because it's essentially It's a very critical game, Don. As you and I were talking off the air this morning, Calgary plays Saskatchewan only twice this year. So with them only playing twice, points for and against might be a big factor if they split the series. That's just the way the schedule is, and it is what it is. And right now, Saskatchewan is 4-0. Calgary is 3-1. Saskatchewan wins that game on next week. They go to 5-0, and they got a 2-game lead over Calgary. Plus, they have the 1 win over Calgary. If Saskatchewan loses, it's going to be wide open for who's going to be in first place. There's going to be 3 teams with 1 loss: Winnipeg, Calgary, and Saskatchewan.
Yeah, it's interesting for this early in the season. I don't recall lately as big a game as what we're going to have Friday night at Mosaic Stadium, Jack, for those very reasons. I was going to go back to attendance, though. I mean, the good news for the Stampeders was the fans were very enthusiastic and loud, and I thought they were very enthusiastic and loud at the last Rough Rider game against the BC Lions. There's a lot of rider pride seeming to sort of be quite noticeable just in the decibel levels. What you heard sitting in the stands, it was loud, and that's great to hear. But, you know, the numbers seem to be coming back in the stands. Ottawa didn't have a bad crowd the other day either. But June seems to be a problem for the CFL, Jack, is for attendance. So what I've noticed the last few years, do you think, is June too early to start playing football? And I don't know what the solutions are either. I'm not saying I have. What do you think?
Absolutely, Don. Completely agree with you. June is a very busy month in a lot of areas. Number one, you have exams for students at every level of school. junior high, elementary, high school. You've got graduations at every level. University, junior high, high school. You've got teachers all busy. June is the busiest month for teachers. They're grading exams. They're going to decide who's promoted and who isn't promoted. You've got the hockey playoffs on, which I fully agree they go too long, but you're not going to change that. You got to live with it. And right now, you've had a Canadian team in the Stanley Cup final the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. And that Canadian team is from Western Canada. Like it or not, the Oilers have been in the Stanley Cup final. Now, I wonder, and that's going to take away people's interests. And also, I'm going to play devil's advocate here too. I wonder how much would be interested in the Stanley Cup final if it was San Jose versus Carolina.
Yeah, nobody.
Exactly. But right now we got another thing that is going on is that people in the May and June have yard chores to do and domestic things and things like that. They're getting things done before they go away on holidays. So there's another reason. Another reason is the Blue Jays are going pretty good right now, and it's baseball season.
Doesn't help.
And so that is all taking into the equation why people aren't going. And then another thing, and it is another factor, most people have kids. And those kids are in their spring sports activities, and they're winding up their seasons. There's a spring football league in Calgary. I don't know whether there is one in Regina, but there are spring football leagues in Calgary. There's spring baseball, spring soccer, spring women's gals field hockey, and all that stuff. So all that stuff is being played in June, and they're winding up their playoffs. I live near a baseball field, as you know, and that place is going all the time right now in June. In July, no one's there unless they're hosting a Canadian championship or a Prairie championship.
It's a tough nut to crack because, I mean, the Grey Cup, I believe it's November 16th in Winnipeg, and they move it up because obviously weather concerns, particularly on the prairies. They have Grey Cups on the prairies because they're always supported so well, so you understand that part of it. You know, everything you said is true, but I also don't know how you change it or how you fix it because of where you have to play the Grey Cup if you're playing it in a city like Winnipeg, and now you're going to have it in Calgary. And I'm just saying it's you're right about. I agree 100% what you said about June, but I don't know what the answer is. I guess I'll put it that way.
Well, I think you should be going at least 1 week later, or maybe even 2 weeks later. You don't need 3 buys per team. You can get by with only 2 buys per team.
I think they went to 2. I could be wrong, but anyway, they still have 2 buys.
And then here's another thing: you don't know what the weather's going to be. There's been times where you've had a bit. Well, let's go back to the Ottawa game in Calgary here 2 weeks ago. It was pouring rain with gale-force winds. And I'll tell you something right now, players would rather play in snow than play in wet weather. I'd rather sit in the game with snow. You bundle up, you make do with it. Rain is awful, and it's you don't know what the weather's going to be. As a good friend of mine, who you've heard me talk about, the late Keith Jackson, said, Calgary is the only city that can host the Winter Summer Olympics at the same darn time and get away with it.
Keith Jackson, the legendary college
and
player.
You never know what the weather's going to be like. I've seen university games, I've seen Stampeder games, and being played in horrible conditions in early October. Yet at the end of November, it's beautiful out. You don't know what the weather's going to be. Like, I mean, they could have a great weather day in Winnipeg this year and a great weather day in Calgary. Oh. You never know. So that's football. You play football, you deal with it. You play in the elements.
That's right. And I think the elements are very entertaining, whether it's sometimes rain or snow. It's fun to watch. But we only have 2 minutes left, Jack. So what are your thoughts? I mean, the Riders are undefeated. Despite having quite a few injuries, they're undefeated. You got about 1 minute and 30 to tell us about what you like or don't like with the Roughriders.
Well, they can't be better than what they are right now. They're 4-0 and without some pretty good players, especially on offense. Schaefer, Baker, Emerson, and Bain at receiver, Sean McEwen at offensive line. So they're really playing. They're doing great in that phase. The problem is this: they're still taking too many penalties, lack of discipline, and eventually that's going to get you in a tight football game. Lawler's been inconsistent, but they're 4-0, and he seems to have turned it around the last game. So I'm not going to. It's hard to be a negative Norman, as our friend John Lynch would say, when you're 4-0. But I think you and I agree that they are taking too many undisciplined penalties, and you're going to get the holding and PI and all that stuff. It's the rough play, it's the illegal procedure, offsides, those unsportsmanlike penalties. Those are the ones they got to clean up. And I honestly think Corey's going to get that cleaned up. But
I think he will. I mean, it happened last year, and Corey got it cleaned up. I have tremendous faith in Corey as the head coach. Like, I really do. If there's a problem, I just know he's going to solve it. He's going to get to the bottom of it and solve it. Where earlier, before he came, you weren't so sure whether it would get solved. But with Corey Mace, he gets it solved. And I guess that's the good news, is that we've got a great head coach, and there's no doubt about it. He's a head coach.
This is. It sounds strange, but 5 games into the season, this is a watershed game for both football teams.
Yeah, it is so early. Thanks a lot for joining us, Jack. And I want to tell everybody about yards. I haven't seen a weed in Jack's yard. If there's a weed, it doesn't last long. You have a beautiful yard. So
well, thanks,
we'll give
John.
you a plug for that.
Thanks, Professor. Always nice talking to you, and we'll be in touch.
You bet, Jack. Thanks a lot. SportsCage will continue in just a moment. And it's Don Hewitt back with SportsCage. You know, anyone that drives to Calgary and back to attend a Roughrider game and does it all season deserves to be on the SportsCage. I refer to Ron Taylor, formerly of Regina, now living in Calgary. Seems like we're in Calgary a lot. That was just a fluke this show. Who's he and his wife, Deb McDaniel, unless there's something crazy going on with another trip that they go on somewhere, they actually drive to Regina back to Calgary for almost all the home games. And how long have you been doing that? There you are. How long have you been doing that with your wife? How long?
Well, we've been doing the drives, I guess, consistently since 2013. So I was doing a little bit of a research just today, and I think we've hit our 100th driving trip this season. So, it works out to about 1,500 kilometers round trip each time. So I'm up to 150,000, Deb and I. So,
holy cow! So you started it in the year they won the Grey Cup. So at that time, it seemed like good luck, I suppose. Keep doing it.
Well, I guess so. It seemed to be good luck at the time. Deb was a rider fan a little bit anyway, but we ended up getting tickets right behind the BC bench for the Western semifinal, and she immediately fell in love with watching all the stuff going on the bench there. And after that, she's a bigger fan than I am, for sure.
So what is it about the experience at Mosaic that keeps you going, and really such a time and money sacrifice that you and your wife make?
Well, it just I think it's the atmosphere more than anything. I've been a Rider fan since I was a little kid. I was baptized by John Badham's father, who used to be the old Roughrider play-by-play guy.
Really?
And I was actually looking at some family history, and my great grandfather was working down White Bear Lake. He went down south. And actually, in his memoirs, he's mentioned he was a rough rider, moving horses between state to state. So my great-grandfather was a rough rider back in 1875.
Yeah, well, John Badham, by the way, was the brother-in-law of Dale Isaac, the legendary announcer. So that was interesting. Now, what are some of the...
that part I didn't know.
Yeah, sort of some of the unique stories that you can tell us about all these journeys that you've made.
Well, first off, I'm going to say one thing about Don Hewitt, the professor. Don Hewitt, the professor, is a very smart man. I was a accredited journalist when I was at Sask Sport. I went to the Olympics in 1988, and I ran into him and the cameraman, might have been Jack Tunnicliffe or somebody. And they had this scam going on where they'd turn on a TV camera light, and we'd jump to the front of every line in every bar that we went to. So I just kind of hung around with Don Hewitt as he scammed his way into bars using a TV camera light to gain access. So I'm not sure if Don remembers this, but it was a very clear memory for me.
Well, the one thing I remember very clearly, I went to the Olympics and did pretty much absolutely nothing. I contributed very little.
Well, I think that
to the good folks at CTV.
Well, I was a print journalist, but I wrote for did some articles for a magazine, which was once a month.
Oh yeah.
So I had pretty much free reign the whole time there. I got to see the Russian Red Army hockey team, and I met the Jamaican bobsled team and all that stuff. But it was pretty interesting.
You said you had a couple when you were texting. A couple of good stories.
Well, one interesting story. You and I have a mutual respect and admiration for Ed McQuarters.
We do. And
I think arguably he may be one of the best defensive linemen to ever play for the Roughriders.
Oh, I'd say the best.
I know one. Yeah, well, I remember the Western Final in 1966. He recovered a fumble and ran it back, and then Leo Lewis and Dave Ramey, the Stampeder or the Blue Bomber halfbacks, couldn't catch him. That's just how good he was.
Yep. He's such a big man. Yep. He could run like that.
I tried to, I wanted to get an autograph for my jersey, and Rider alumni couldn't really make it happen. Ed didn't really go out that much. Hoppy tried to do it. He couldn't really get him. But we were marooned in Regina Hotel during one of a blizzard one year, and we were stuck there for about 2 days. So I found a phone book in the hotel. So I just looked up Ed McQuarters and I phoned him up. He said, "Oh, sure, come on over. I'll sign it for you." So I went over there, and he told me a whole bunch of stories about his tough upbringing in life, and how St. Louis kind of jerked him around a little bit. Yeah, he was in the same draft class with St. Louis as Roy Shivers.
Oh, okay. Well, unfortunately, that's interesting. Unfortunately, during Ed's era, there was still racism in professional football. Sadly, he was a victim of it. The good news was he came to Saskatchewan and was a big reason that they won the 1966 Grey Cup. And from there on, Eagle Keys would use him as a test at training camp against defensive tackles, one-on-one, or rather, I should say they tested offensive linemen against Ed, the defensive tackle. They wouldn't bother with any other defensive tackles. They just go with Ed against an offensive lineman, and if he could just only got beat badly, he might play. If he got beat very, very badly, they'd probably cut him. And that was the Eagle Keys test.
I remember those training camps because I went to them when I was a kid, and they used to hold them at the racetrack there. And you used to go in there and watch them do the gauntlets, the one-on-ones there. And there was a lot of, like Dan Rashovich said, a lot of grunting and groaning and farting and everything else that they would.
Well, and the coolest thing about Ed isn't so much what an unbelievable football player that he was, but he's also an outstanding person. Ed McQuarters, and I very proudly wear his jersey to the majority of Rider games. And it's only older guys will come up to you and say, "Oh, I like your jersey," because they remember Ed, and it makes you feel like, it's too bad the younger people didn't see him play. I don't think it's even close that he's the greatest defensive tackle to ever play for Saskatchewan, and they've had some really good ones.
Well, if they put his body in today's society, a 6'1", 255 guy that ran like he did back then, like 35, 40 years, 50 years later on, picture him now, what kind of physical specimen he might be comparatively to some of the players they have now. There's no way he'd even be in the CFL. He would be, he was Cam Wake with size, essentially.
Yeah, he was. That's a good point. It's really nice to touch base with you, Ron. Such a dedicated Roughrider fan, and I hope you're coming Friday, because it's going to be a heck of an event. 3-1 the Stampeders, 4-0 Saskatchewan. So thanks for joining us, and SportsCage will continue in just a moment. And our SportsCage clutch performance, we're going to go absolutely with Vernon Adams Jr., the quarterback of the Calgary Stampeders. 13 for 18 last night in Calgary, 222 yards with key 2 touchdown passes, no interceptions. He had the 1 bomb of 66 yards. So Vernon Adams has a winning record against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, of all things. Who would expect anybody, after Winnipeg winning the West 5 years in a row, to have a winning record against them? Clutch performance brought to you by Nick Service in Emerald Park, your local Massey Ferguson, Challenger, Rogator, Gleaner, and Fent dealer. Call 781-1077. And I don't know if you guys knew this, but it's National Fishing Week in Canada. And if anybody knows a lot about that topic, it's obviously Jason Matity of getfishing.ca. That's getfishing.ca. Log on, you're going to learn a whole bunch. But Saskatchewan, next weekend, it's their big fishing week, is it not, Jason? July 12th and 13th. So what's happening on those days in this wonderful province of Saskatchewan?
For sure, Don. And just to give a little bit of background on National Fishing Week, we in Saskatchewan are tied to it. It's an overall celebration of getting out, putting the electronics down, getting out in the great outdoors and casting a line and enjoying some fishing in our outdoor heritage in Canada, of which we're blessed with an extreme amount of outdoors in this province and in this country. A lot of other provinces like Ontario, they have free fishing all week this week. That's directly tied to National Fishing Week, but it's really the precursor to get everybody revved up for Free Fishing Weekend, which is next weekend, which is pretty much exactly as it sounds, meaning you can go out for free and you don't need a license.
Right, and it sounds good. I like the concept, but of course I need something to fish with. So how about let's talk to the absolute fishing rookies, the people that have never fished, and they're listening to you speak with tremendous knowledge on fishing, and they're wondering, well, then now what do I do? It's free fishing. I want to go, but now what do I do? I have nothing.
Well, it's one of those things that, it depends how deep you want to go down the wormhole. I remember you used to be able to grab a set of golf clubs that looked pretty random and you could go have a round of golf, and now everything's specialized.
Yeah.
Fishing can be, if you want to really get into it, but basically what you need, and I'm going to try and show it to you here, you need a rod and reel. With this one spooled with about 6-pound monofilament line. It's the most affordable stuff. You can even get a combo lots of times pre-spooled with this stuff, so you're good to go. And this is a medium light rod and reel combo, about 6 feet long. I call it Mr. Everything, this rod and reel, because it's strong enough that you could handle like a big northern pike, for example, if you know how to play them and take your time. But it's also light enough because it's got a very, very soft action, like at the rod tip. You can see how much it's falling here. For those of you who aren't on the radio and can see us online, essentially you want to have what's a medium light outfit is what you want to have. And you can do everything from catch small perch with it to big northern pike if you know how to play them right.
Any other tips? Because people are still going to say, okay, I've got that equipment, but I'm clueless. I still don't know if I can catch a fish. Well,
my shameless plug of go to getfishing.ca is a great place to learn various techniques where we have different videos and those types of things on very specific techniques for walleye, perch, pike, trout, and other species. But essentially, it's really about, and a lot of people, obviously, if you're fishing for the first time, a lot of people who would be for Free Fishing Weekend, you want to try to find a spot at this time of year where you can cast and aren't just picking up tons and tons of weeds, because the weeds are starting to grow up, and that makes it a bit difficult for the shore angler. Having said that, though, and I'm just going to, for those of you who are watching this online, you can see I have what's called a floater, a bobber system here. Basically, it's something that clips on your line, or can hold that bait up off the bottom and keep it out of the weeds. because weeds are important.
Oh, yeah.
There's all kinds of fish that hang out in the weeds, but that'll keep it above it, and you can just slowly reel it back in or just throw it out there and wait for the bobber to go down, and you can set the hook. And one of my favorite lures under a bobber system is a flasher jig with a big flasher blade on it, 1/8 ounce or smaller, and that'll just dance in the waves, and either when the wind blows or a boat goes by, and the fish find it pretty irresistible. And you can even cast and retrieve that. Jigs are very, very effective in that way. And put a piece of rubber tail on it. You can also, use bait like leeches, night crawlers, minnow even, and you'll get a fish in Saskatchewan to usually come and bite that.
Okay, on the other side of the coin, almost what we would almost call professional fishermen that make money in tournaments and have all this technology, like you know all about this technology more than I do, but it's advancing just like a computer would, because that's basically what it is. It's computers and cameras. At this point, is it fair to the fish? I mean, what kind of a sport is it when you've got all this technology to get the fish? What chance does the fish have? Is it still a sport?
Well, it definitely, the technology is making it so we can find fish very quickly. You still do need to make them bite, though. And there's no amount of electronics in the world that will actually get that fish to put that bait in its mouth. Now, you can learn different techniques and the way to manipulate your bait that, over the years, I know if I wiggle it this way or let it hit the bottom and slightly lift it up and maybe just jiggle it or hold it still, that'll often produce a strike. And it keeps me in the game, if you will, if there's something I can see on the electronics. So that's obviously the answer is yes. It is making it easier for us to catch fish, and that's why. And this is kind of comes full circle to a point I wanted to make about Free Fishing Weekend. Even though you don't need a license, you still need to follow the rules. And when whether it's new technology, whether it's going out for the first time, you need to know that, okay, you can only keep 4 walleyes to a certain size in Saskatchewan. And if you go to saskatchewan.ca/fishing, you could read up all about it. But that's really, really important, is that you know that. It's 25 perch, which is a lot, except in places like Buffalo Pound Lake, where the limit's only 10. The reason they did that is because it's an exceptional perch fishery, and they want to protect it. So that's another way as anglers we can protect this renewable resource if we don't over-harvest. So kind of a little bit on the point you were talking before, but really it comes down to, if you do get a good bite, be responsible out there. Just keep a few to eat, but don't keep everything.
Right. And coming up, by the way, folks, it'll be Barney with Prairie Golf Gems in Indian Head when I finish my chat with Jason. Now, Jason, as you well know, your wife Sharon is a saint. And one of the reasons
you have no idea how much she is. Yes, that's correct.
And one of the reasons your wife is a saint is because she lets you go fishing so much. So I'm always fascinated by how much you love fishing, and you can find out about it on getfishing.ca. But what is there? Can you pinpoint why you love fishing to the degree that you do? And it's a good thing, but
I don't want to jinx myself by saying I'm pretty good at it, because the fish will make sure I'm not on the next trip if I say that. But It started for me very young, something my brother and I did together, Jeff, who's the other my partner in getfishing.ca. And, we bonded over that, and we got to go out and we got to fish. And quite frankly, it was our sanctuary from doing farm work when we got tired of doing that and when we grew up on the farm. But as I've gotten older, as we all have, I just appreciate it for the calm and serene and the nature that it provides, the mental wellness, really, of getting out there and enjoying nature. And if we catch a few fish along the way, that's great. And obviously I want to be successful when I'm out, and that's why I've learned these techniques. I want to share them with folks through our getfishing.ca website. But that's really what it's about now. It's just about restoring my mental wellness, really, as much as it is about catching a fish.
Right. Well, nature heals, and there's no doubt about it. I guess one thing that's concerning, as we go with climate, whatever you want to call it, global warming, whether you believe in it or not, is the northern fires and whatnot, and how it's affecting things like fishing. You can't even get to some of the lakes. It's so sad, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it is, the boreal forest, which is a beautiful, stunning place that I like to spend as much time in it as I can.
Yeah.
It unfortunately will burn, quite severely. And, as we have hotter summers, drier summers, that's always more severe. And it's very, very sad for that to happen. And it's sad enough for those of us who pinned our whole summer vacation on being a part of it. It's even more devastating for the people who live there and support these businesses.
Yes.
So my heart always goes out to them. And I think for all of us who are disappointed that our trip might have been canceled or modified, I think we just have to be patient and be understanding of the people who need to save their homes and their properties.
Right. Now, one thing I do know about you, other than fishing, is you're a big Rider fan. You love the Roughriders. You get a little upset when they lose. I'm
getting better, but I still get upset when they lose. There's no question. I haven't had a lot to get upset about this year.
Oh, exactly. But you're happy when they win. So what's your take on this undefeated Saskatchewan Roughrider team? Anytime
you're a Roughrider fan and you can say we're 4 weeks into the season, we're undefeated, of course I'm elated. I'm excited. I mean, and especially the last game where they put away an opponent. They really took it to them. And I think there's nothing but positives all around. Now, obviously, it's always concerning with our older quarterback, and you're just hoping he's going to be okay and able to get through a season. That's always a concern because that can derail anybody's season, those injuries. And just hoping that the only tiny criticism really is hoping that our coach can get a handle on these crazy penalties that guys have been taking, because that's going to sink us against really, really good teams like Winnipeg, which I still think is the best team in the West, and Calgary, which I hope isn't the best team in the West.
Well, one thing I know, it'd be refreshing to see another Western team in the Grey Cup. 5 in a row in a 9-team league. I think, and nothing against Winnipeg. It's the other teams couldn't, compete with them and keep up with them. But I think it'd be very good in the CFL. Again, nothing against Winnipeg and their excellence, but we need another Western team in the Grey Cup. Hopefully Saskatchewan. But don't you agree? It would be a nice change. It would be really nice to see. It would be really nice to see. And Winnipeg, they had their chance. They got 2 of 5, and they blew it the last 3 years. So they don't even, in my mind, deserve another chance. But I mean, it would be nice, but it would be nicest if it was the Riders. But seeing Winnipeg lose a 4th one is almost as good as a Grey Cup win for the Riders, I have to admit. Yeah, well, I mean, they're our closest geographic rivals, so we're hoping that we're going to tidy them up. We have 3 games ahead against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Thanks for joining us, Jason, on SportsCage. And the sports ticker, one game in the CFL tonight. Hamilton plays in Toronto. We'll be talking to Glen Suitor about that game very shortly. Saskatchewan teams playing baseball tonight. It's July 4th. I guess it's an American thing to do. Okotoks is in Swift Current. Saskatoon Berries are in Moose Jaw. The ticker brought to you by Extreme Hockey and Sport. Whatever your spring sport is or summer, Extreme Hockey has you covered.
Prairie Golf Gems time here on the SportsCage, where we showcase golf courses in and around Saskatchewan. A lot of the 9-hole, the 9-bangers out there. Some of the hidden gems. Prairie Golf Gems brought to you by Flooring Superstore in Regina. Trent Dickin and his team, they're big golfers, and they can help you out. Anything you need flooring, over 30 years in business. They help rural Saskatchewan, all southern Saskatchewan. And like I said, they love supporting initiatives like the Prairie Golf Gems report here on the SportsCage. Today, we're going to look at the Indian Head Golf and Country Club. It's been around for quite a while. It originated back in 1962, and it was sand greens up until about 1995. We had a chance to catch up with head superintendent, all-around great guy, Ray Ayres. Ray, thanks so much for doing this and having some fun and shedding some light on the golf course.
Oh, glad to have you guys talking about it.
All right, so it's a 9-hole track in Indian Head. Now, I've never played it, but people talk about it. It's an awesome little loop. A lot of people like to do the Katepwa, then Indian Head, kind of back to back to make it 18 holes. When you talk about the Indian Head golf course to people, like, how do you describe it? What do you say about it?
For a golf course that doesn't have a lot of amenities, it's very challenging. Our greens are small. They're hard to hit. Our holes are long. It's a challenging course. Even our par threes are long.
How many years have you been the superintendent out there, and have there been a lot of changes through the years?
I have been superintendent since 1995, so that makes it 30 years this year. And yes, there has been a lot of changes. For the first 10 years, we thought we'd only have watered greens and watered tee boxes, but through those 10 years, we slowly picked at the fairways, putting some sprinklers in some strategic spots. And just this past year, we finally were able to get ourselves affluent water projects, so we're not short of water anymore. That was our biggest downfall. Time July came along, we were starting to burn up because we didn't have the water available.
That would make sense. Now I'm looking at the pictures online. There, you talk about it being challenging and long holes. I think I'm reading, over 3,000 yards if you play it from the tips of the nine. Another challenging thing, it looks like there's a lot of trees on this course, Ray.
Oh, yeah. There was about 30,000 planted throughout quite a few years, and we've actually had to trim a few back and take a few out. It just got to be too many.
What would be your favorite hole, and what's the kind of the favorite hole of most people that play it?
Well, I'd almost want to say number 8, because we have 7 poplars right in the middle of the fairway, just before where you want to land. So we call those the 7 sisters, and if you can get by them, you're doing well, and I'd say it's a very challenging hole.
What is it busy, summertime here, a lot of people around the lakes and all that. When is it the busiest time? When do you advise people to maybe call, make a booking if they're going to come out? What kind of, information can you give us on that?
Well, now that summer season is upon us, I would start booking your tee times all the time. And you can book through Tion. So you can book online, and that's the great part about it. So you don't have to hem and haw. If you're going to get a tee time, you can see the tee times right there, what are available.
So Ray, it says, on the website, adult 9 holes, only $29.50, 18 holes, $44, coupon books available. And you got power carts out there, right? Like it says 18-hole power cart, $38, $25. Maybe talk about, the amenities. Like, can people, is there, if a guy wants a beverage or a girl wants a beverage, all that, what are they about the amenities?
Well, there's all kinds of amenities. Like we have 24 golf carts. We have a pavilion in case you want to host a tournament here. There's a pavilion you can use. There's barbecue. The clubhouse has food available.
Licensed.
The list goes on and on.
Licensed. That's the main thing when you're golfing.
Licensed. Absolutely licensed. And beverage is only $5.50.
Wow,
that's five during happy hour.
Well, you're pretty much giving it away out there, Ray.
You betcha. That keeps them coming.
What? Are there any tournaments that, like, just regular public? If you're not a member out there, you're not from there. Any tournaments that you want to shed some light on?
Oh yeah, there's actually one tomorrow, as a matter of fact, but you won't be airing that one. But we have a hole-in-one tournament that'll be in August. I believe there's a turkey shoot here in September. Mm-hmm. If they go on the Facebook website, they'll be able to see all our tournaments that are available, and they're available to all public.
Nice. Good stuff.
Yeah.
This you're the superintendent, but I'm sure things like this don't tick without a lot of volunteers and a lot of people chipping in from the area.
Oh, yeah. We get a lot of volunteer work out here. We have a board of, I believe, 11 executives, and they are quite often out here helping out.
That's fantastic. Yeah. The Indian Head Golf Club, it's in good shape right now. We got some water on there. I'm looking at the pictures, Ray. You make me want to come out and play it, I'll tell you that.
I'll tell you, it's in the best shape this time of year ever in my 30 years.
Jeez.
The time to come out is now.
And
check it out. Everyone's always pleasantly surprised. They always say that. Man, I was pleasantly surprised. I didn't expect it to be this good.
Ray Ayres from the Indian Head Golf and Country Club. Thank you so much for doing this today on the Sports Cage, Ray.
Well, thanks for having us on, and keep up the good work. Maybe we'll send a few rounds of golf up your guys' way.
Hey, people always love winning golf on the show. Thanks again.
You betcha. Thank you.
Like Ray said, you can find him on Facebook, also golfindianheadsk.com. Great little 9 holes, reasonably priced. He talked about it licensed. If you like a pint when you're golfing or something like that. So, if you have a course that we should showcase on Prairie Golf Gems, 4 flooring superstores in Regina, Trent Dickin and his team, over 30 years in business. Let us know. Shoot us a text. 936-6262, and we'll try and showcase as many as we can over the year. Again, thanks to Flooring Superstores for their sponsorship and their community involvement, especially when it comes to golf, Trent Dickin and his team. It is a Sports Cage. We are the home of local sports in Saskatchewan, streaming at sportscage.com and on 620 CKRM.
And, of course, Don Hewitt back in, filling in for Barney, who will be back in his regular chair. Here is the main host of Sports Cage on Monday. And don't forget, big CFL game coming up on TSN. The Hamilton Tiger Cats in Toronto to face the Argonauts. The Ticats 1-2, and the Argonauts are 1-3. So somebody wants to get a victory out of that game for sure tonight. And of course the Argonauts, they drew a pretty good crowd in their last game. Even in their home opener, looked a little bit better. There'll be people coming down the highway from Hamilton to the game. So, if you take a look at the ups and downs of the CFL, I would suggest, of course, they won the Grey Cup last year, but I would suggest that things are turning around in Toronto for the Toronto Argonauts, which is huge because, of course, Toronto is the center of commerce, business in Canada. Very important that the CFL team has a club in the largest city in this country, and I think it's a plus. They're slowly making inroads with the crowds and the football fans in Toronto, and especially because there's absolutely zero chance at this time and place that the NFL is coming to Toronto anytime soon. You convert the U.S. dollar, or rather the Canadian dollar, to the U.S. dollar, and the price for a franchise and a stadium is pretty much out of sight. So, you know what? Football is the Argonauts as far as Toronto is concerned. That's the way it's going to be. And fans are responding, at least better than they have in the past. And if you missed it, Joey Chestnut wins his 17th mustard belt at the Nathan Hot Dog Contest in Coney Island. If you can believe it, he walloped down 70.5 wieners and buns, which is, of course, making a hot dog. So congratulations to Joey Chestnut for his mustard belt championship once again. The Blue Jays, of course, they are, believe it or not playing the Yankees after a 4-game homestand against the Pinstripers. They're actually going to play somebody different, and that team will be the Angels. They're coming into Toronto. Of course, the Blue Jays, after their big win last night, are now a game up on the New York Yankees for first place in the American League East. You may not like it, though, because they're in the top of one and no score, but it's on Apple TV. It sort of throws a monkey wrench into everything. When it's not on your usual Sportsnet channel, it's on Apple TV tonight. But that's the way sports is going. You know, the streamers are getting their foothold into sports, and the winners are, of course, the owners of all the sports franchises. So if you've got Apple TV, I've got it because it's got some good shows on it. If you've got Apple TV, I think you're going to enjoy the Blue Jays tonight, because it'd give them a good shot at winning that game and continuing their lead in the American League East. The biggest football game of the year in the CFL for Saskatchewan is definitely this Friday, when the 3-1 Calgary Stampeders come into Saskatchewan. Like calling it Saskatchewan, not Regina, because let's face it, it's the Saskatchewan Roughriders, not the Regina Roughriders. If it was the Regina Roughriders, the team would have been defunct long ago. Anyway, they're coming in a battle for first place at the top of the West between Calgary and Saskatchewan. Who would have thought it? After, of course, the Stampeders absolutely thumped the Winnipeg Blue Bombers last night. Glen Suitor is going to be coming up in just a few minutes, and he's going to discuss the game at McMahon that he saw in person. And everybody, of course, last night, if you watched TSN, celebrating the Stampede, which begins officially today, wearing their cowboy hats and their regalia. It was a lot of fun to watch, and it was sort of refreshing to see, for once, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers take an absolute pasting. The more parity in any league, the better. The CFL has probably the fairest, except for a little bit of last year with what BC did. But they've got pretty much the fairest salary cap of any professional sports in North America. So, in theory, the CFL should be very, very competitive, which it normally certainly is. And that was very nice to see for sure. So Glenn is on the line. Last night, Glenn, everybody was wearing cowboy hats and on the TSN crew, and you had a really sharp-looking hat, and we're going to go to that when we're ready with it.
Time now for press coverage with CFL and Saskatchewan Roughrider legend Glen Suitor on the Sports Cage. Brought to you by Bronco Plumbing and Heating, where professional service is guaranteed. They'll treat you right. 781-2090.
As I continued, Glen Suitor had a very snappy cowboy hat on last night. Let's go to a picture of it if we can. Because it was a hat that cost a few bucks. It was very stylish. Glenn looked really good in the hat. When we see it, we'll let you know, Glenn, because of course the people on radio won't see it. But if you're smart enough to be streaming, you will see Glenn in his hat. And when we see it, we can also say that if you want to see something that's the exact opposite of what Glenn looked like, and I mean the absolute opposite, I think Curtis is still going to try to effort a shot of it as we talk to Glenn, will be his partner, Dustin Nielsen, in the booth. Glenn had a stylish hat. We will see it in a few seconds. Dustin Nielsen had a plastic cowboy hat that he got at the dollar store, I think. Where did he get his hat, Glenn?
That's a good question, Don. I don't know, but I know he was searching for the Woody lookalike from Toy Story, and because his kids love the Toy Story thing, and they're right at that age, and so he was looking for the Woody hat with the whistle and everything, and he came up with that one. In fact, it was funny because just before I left from Vancouver to get to Calgary, he texted me and he said, "Hey, I'm going hat shopping. Do you want me to get you one? What size are you?" And when he had said to me, "I'm looking for a Woody style hat," I thought, you know what? I'll bring my own. You go ahead and get yours, and we'll see how it all shakes down. But yeah, we were the outlaws up there. Well, at least I was, and so was Chantel down on the sideline wearing all black.
Yeah, I mean, that was a really good presentation that you guys had, and it was sort of cool to have this Stampede Bowl, and it's going to be a fun event, and hopefully they can sort of make the Stampede Bowl like the Banjo Bowl. The Banjo Bowl, oh, there it is. There it is. We've got it up. Thank you very much. I'll tell you, that was great work by Curtis efforting that shot. There's the two of you. I don't know if you can see the stream or not there, Glenn. We've got a shot of you and Dustin. You look so good, and he looks so bad. And his cowboy hat is shiny, like it's off the TV lights.
Well, in fairness, Don, I had been to the Stampede a few times, and in fact, I've actually hosted a couple of things. So I wanted to, back years ago, get a really good hat for those reasons, and I just had it. In fact, I have an actual hat suitcase that you get that
really?
Guys that people that have cowboy hats, they know what I'm talking about. It's like a plastic thing, and it's got clips on the side, and it keeps your hat completely safe from any luggage crushing. So, I was a little more prepared in that regard, I think, in fairness to my partner. But it was a great event and a good idea. And it's kind of like Amar Doman in Vancouver with his Game 1 concert series, which he wants to continue. And now the Calgary Stampeders have a, random July game that becomes this sort of rivalry game. And I don't think it's been completely determined as to whether or not it will be Winnipeg every year.
Oh, okay.
I don't even think they've thought that far ahead, to be quite honest. They were looking at this as a one-off event and see what it looked like, and they loved it. The turnout was excellent. The buzz in the tailgate and all around the stadium was fantastic. So I think we'll see it again. I would lean. I think there's a thought that Edmonton might be a cool matchup, but we have Labor Day for Edmonton and Calgary, and I don't know. I think it might be cool to be the visiting team going after the Stampede Bowl trophy. And it could be a different team every year almost, depending on the schedule.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out. It was a very nice trophy. The Four Nations Cup was made by the same company as the trophy that they had for the Stampede Bowl, apparently. So, and the Banjo Bowl started so naturally, didn't it? And they're hosting the Stampede Bowl trophy there, as if you can see it. But the Banjo Bowl started in such a natural way. It just had to be successful. When Troy Westwood called Rider fans a bunch of inbreds and hillbillies, it was a natural beginning. It was a natural start. But why not just invent the Stampede Bowl and go with it and make some excitement out of it? Now, what I thought last night, Glenn, as you were calling the color last night, 37-16 for Calgary, I thought the score actually flattered the Blue Bombers. What I thought was interesting, all the different unique issues in the CFL seems to equal that you can rebuild a CFL team in one off season.
Yeah, it's a good point, and I think there's been people that have thought of that in sort of a negative way and thought, there's a lot of free agency, and that is a bit of an issue when you have 1-year contracts and you can't really build or market players in your community. I think we've discussed at length many times, the different ways that you could change that. But, the upside is that you can rebuild quickly, that free agency will come. There's going to be a whole bunch of players, sometimes over 100 players that are available in free agency where you can really, rebuild your team. The other thing about our game that is unique, and I think it's that second chance league for a lot of really good athletes, good football players from the States that, are 28 years old but are rookies in our league. And, a first-year guy that's 28 is so much more mature than a 23-year-old and has learned how to be a pro already through his journey. So there's that element as well.
Well, and that sort of ties into opening up the negotiation lists for all 9 CFL teams to the entire 45 players, and it'll change as the negotiation list changes. That's what the new commissioner has done just a few days ago. And that's so interesting for fans and such a refreshing move by the CFL, Glenn, because it gives you an idea how high of a caliber league this is, because you Google some of these players. Some of them we know who they are. I mean, we've heard of some of the players from their NFL or college careers at times, but the majority of them you don't really know. And you Google some of these guys and you realize, oh my goodness, I mean, it's just, there's Trey Lance, there's Claypool for the Roughriders and whatnot, but there's a lot of outstanding athletes here that were good players in the NFL, or decent, and college stars. And anyway, I knew if you were the commissioner, you would have opened it up. And a great move of the CFL, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And, this is another sort of subtle but important decision by the new commissioner, Stuart Johnston, and a guy who went in and probably had it from the media angle and saw the missed opportunity. We have talked many times. I know Dave Naylor has been a big proponent of making the neg list public. And he's, I'm sure, talked to all the staff and Stuart Johnson at TSN when he was there. So, he comes in and automatically sees the benefit of it, as you just pointed out, and says, well, why are we being held back here by, I think the beginning of it, to go back in time to say why this happened, was because coaches and organizations would spend their own money from their teams to have a free agent camp in California. They would, in their mind, discover players that the rest of the league didn't know about. So they wanted to be able to, even if they couldn't sign them immediately, they wanted to be able to protect them because they had made the investment to go down and find them.
Right.
But with social media and with, all of the communication, different ways that we communicate between leagues and college football, and you can go and see any player, basically Google him now, and you see all of his highlights. The players now are building their own highlight packages. So
yeah, that's right.
You don't really need it anymore, Donnie. You just then you go to the missed opportunity, which we have argued for years and years. And that, I remember back in the CTV days when you and I were back doing the show, and who was hosting that show? It was
Dale Isaac.
Thank you. Dale Isaac was hosting the show.
You were a reporter.
Yes, and we were talking about making the neg list public because there was some quarterback on that list at the time that was a big name guy, and we thought, people would be interested in this stuff, and we want to make people interested in our league.
That's a good point. Now, of course, Stuart Johnson was a high-ranking executive with Bell Media. He used to be your boss, of course. With his media background and savvy and all that he knows about so many elements of sports broadcasting, how much do you think it's going to help him in his job as the CFL commissioner?
Oh, a ton. A ton. And I think the one that I always hammer home is the creation of the narrative that when well-meaning commissioners in the past, and when I say well-meaning, I'm sincerely mean they did a lot of good things, including Randy Ambrosie, like a lot of good things. And I know they were well-meaning to talk about rule changes and even some drastic fundamental changes to our game and making it more like the game down south. They had good intentions in mind, but what I don't think they understood was, and being in the media, you get this a lot, you can see it a lot clearer, is that when you continue to tell a fan that we need to fix the league because we're trying to fix the rules, because we need to fix the league to make it better and more exciting and blah, 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 what they're really saying is that the league is broken. They're not saying that out loud, but they're implying it because it needs all these drastic changes. And I always make the analogy that if I went into a restaurant and the waiter came out and he said, Here, we have two dishes. One is a bit of an experiment. We're trying to fix it. It's not quite right. We're not sure if it's even clean. And then there's this other dish, number 2, that is the best dish you will ever eat. Which one would you like? You know, I mean, that's the messaging of two different things that, you know, as any sort of layman fan or layman cook, I would go, well, give me the one that I'll like forever. I mean, that's an easy choice. And I think that Stuart, to answer your question, will understand that what you say and how you say it from a league perspective matters. It matters in a big way. What is the message you're telling people? Because we don't have to fabricate it. You know that. This game is fantastic. It's fun. Are there bad games? Sure there are. Are there bad quarters and too many penalties sometimes? Absolutely. But that's the same in any league. Our league is fantastic. Now we just have to consistently message that, create that narrative so that people don't say, well, I don't really want the one that is broken. Give me the one that is the best I'll ever eat.
Yeah,
I'll take that.
Exactly. Don't disappoint. And that's what the new commissioners are going to work on. We've only got like 45 seconds left. I don't know where the time went, but if you can encapsulate this question. Last night I saw so much excitement in Calgary. I hadn't seen the fans like that in several years. They were ecstatic. They were loud. They were jumping up and down. It was so good to see. And the fact is, Winnipeg losing like that, they've won 5 Western Championships in a row. I thought it was actually good for the CFL, Glenn. And no knock on Winnipeg. Yeah. No knock on Winnipeg at all. But it was good for the league.
Well, yeah, and sometimes we can build the sort of the New York Yankee model where there's one team that is just so dominant and they become the bad guy across the entire country, and who's going to knock off the big team and all that. And I think Winnipeg has sort of built that. But yeah, I always would lean in one or the other argument to parity. And if you go in and believe that your team has a chance to be a champion, you're going to be more interested and more engaged. So I really think to your point that was a game that showed that Calgary can compete. In fact, I did the Zooms with Ottawa and with Edmonton today, talking to coaches and a couple of players. And I asked them about that. I said, when you watch Winnipeg go down and be like the second best team in that game by a long shot last night, and Calgary doing it, what does that do to you guys and your confidence? And they were like, well, it's anybody's division. We're talking about teams that go, hey, they look like mere mortals, so any team can be beat on any given day.
Glenn, thanks a lot. Appreciate your insight. Have a good weekend. SportsCage continues in just a moment. And bottom of 2 in Toronto, the Angels and Blue Jays are scoreless. Steelcraft Doors Regina, made in Western Canada for Western Canadians.